All right. Hi, everybody from the class of Duke 2020. We're going to introduce ourselves, and then we'll jump into like the questions and answers to just kind of go over any questions you may have about really anything that has to do with Duke. So I'm Haisa Young, and I am an ICS, International Comparative Studies major, and a Visual Studies minor. I work at the Duke undergraduate office, and I am currently running a project called the Voices of Duke project.
Hey guys, I'm Jackson. I'm also a sophomore. I am studying public policy, getting certificates in policy journalism and media studies, and in arts of the moving image. I play club frisbee. I do a lot of stuff with Duke Student Broadcasting, especially sports-related stuff. I'm kind of really big into Duke basketball, if you can't tell by my little icon there. And I love to sit under the baskets and film games for DSB. So, yeah.
Hey folks, I am also a sophomore. I'm a poli-sci major hailing from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm really excited to chat with you all tonight. So I am your go-to person for any questions about like politics, poli-sci, stuff at Duke. Also, I'm a columnist for the Duke Chronicle, so if you have any questions about that side of things. And then yes, that is the chapel quad behind me. So let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is how did you decide your major, and what's the first year like? Either of you guys can take that one.
I'll take this one. I came in, so I have albinism in case you can't tell, so I arrived at Duke thinking that like genetics was my life because I had this like obscure connection with it. So I did the genomes focus, which if you want to know more about focus, feel free to ask. And I was like so big on pre-med and all of that, and then I got there and I realized it's not actually what I like at all. I love my public policy classes. I just took one randomly last semester, and it was great, but I still don't really see myself doing a public policy career. Again, I'm really into sports journalism. That's kind of like my passion, kind of what I really want to do. But public policy is a really flexible major that kind of gives me a lot of options, and I really like the classes. So while I'm doing sort of a lot of stuff outside of class to pursue sports journalism, because I really enjoy the classes of public policy, that's why I've stuck with public policy.
So for me, I declared my major in the fall, and so like a semester early, and I sort of fell in love with poli-sci my first year at Duke. I came in as the like classic undecided kid, just taking classes all over the place in ethics and environmental science, and I was in a focus too. The knowledge in the service of society focus, highly recommended. And I took this wonderful American foreign policy class with this brilliant professor who was just so engaging and sort of took his undergraduate students under his wing, and now he's my major advisor in poli-sci. And so I say, you know, it's okay if you come in undecided because you will find a home in one of the departments, or even if you make a program too and design your own major.
And then I can address like the last part of the question, which was kind of like, what is the first year like? I mean, I guess one word that would kind of summarize it is just very overwhelming. There's just a lot of new experiences. I mean, it's a ton of fun just because when you're a freshman, you're on your own campus on East, and Duke just does a really great job of making that first year experience to be so like fulfilling and really well-rounded. But we'll kind of talk more about it, so you'll get a really good sense of it, hopefully, by the end of this video. So the next question is, what's dorm life like, and how do you decide where you live and roommates? Matthew, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll take this one. So freshman year, for your first year, you will live on East Campus in one of like, I think it's 12 or 13 those of the dorms there, and I will tell you that dorm life is actually superior to when we were there because all of East Campus just got air conditioning. And this may not seem like something to brag about, but as someone who is not in an air-conditioned dorm last year, you should be very, very happy with that development. And then in terms of how you decide, so the focus clusters have different dorms, And so if you do apply for Focus, you may end up in a particular dorm. I know there's an arts-themed dorm as well as a substance-free dorm. So those are assigned to particular areas. And then also, what you can do is find a roommate online, sort of through the Facebook group, based on similar interests or habits, or you can do a random roommate search. And both of those can be really successful.
Great. Wait, Jackson, did you
Just that, yeah, I got it. Sorry, my mic was muted. To add on to that, if you don't do Focus, only 25% of freshmen, I think, is the statistic, do Focus. So if you don't do Focus, you're randomly assigned. You can't pick your dorm. They all have different advantages, disadvantages, but they're all fine. Like you'll survive. They aren't horrible. I went random with my roommate. I thought about doing Facebook, and I looked into it, and there are a couple people I reached out to, but ultimately I decided to go random because I felt like it was hard to really judge a person based on how they presented themselves online. And ultimately, what you want from a roommate isn't necessarily a best friend. If your roommate wind up being your best friend, that's fantastic, good for you. But you want a roommate you can live with. You have to deal with so much in college, and if your roommate's stressing you out because of their living habits, then that's not something you want to deal with. So that being said, there's plenty of people who found each other on Facebook or who met at Blue Devil Days and decided to become roommates. So any of those routes work. Just choose which you're most comfortable with. I had a great roommate experience by going random. We're still good friends.
Great. So there's a question from Lily. I know Duke is obviously academically rigorous, but have you ever found the academics at Duke to be too overwhelming or stressful? So I can kind of talk on this one a little bit, and as I'm sure you guys can add. So when I came into Duke, I was pre-med and decided that, of course, I should take chemistry, and quickly realized that chemistry at Duke is not the same thing as chemistry in high school. And it was really, really hard and overwhelming, and realized it was way more overwhelming because I didn't want to actually be doing that. And so I think it really depends on what classes you're taking. Like right now, I'm overloading with 5 full classes, and it's like I'm in 3 different language classes, and it's not overwhelming at all for me. I'm usually on top of my classes, and I don't feel very stressed out, but that's mostly because of what I'm taking. So it really is kind of how you craft your own journey, I guess, in Duke's academic settings.
Let me just jump in here and add something. So one of the best things about Duke professors is that they are so understanding about extensions. And so if you email your professor a week in advance or with enough time in advance, he or she will, 9 times out of 10, be very happy to grant you an extension. So that's just one thing you can do to sort of relieve the overwhelming feeling, because I'm someone who procrastinates, and I will sometimes stay up late to get an assignment done, and I think that's where some of that feeling can come from. But honestly, I've pulled fewer all-nighters at Duke than I did in high school, so it's not that bad. Don't be too afraid, y'all.
Great. Okay. And now a question from James. Are any of you planning on or are currently participating in undergraduate research? If so, what do you find unique about undergraduate research at Duke? Are either of you two doing undergraduate research?
Yeah, I'll actually jump in on this. I've been doing undergraduate research in the humanities here, which is kind of, I guess it's like less common because a lot of the research is done in the social sciences or in the sort of natural sciences or hard sciences. So I've been doing research on genocide for the past 2 years, and this summer I'll actually be pursuing that at a conference in Israel and presenting a paper there. So that's been mentored through professors at Duke, and I would encourage you to check out the there's an Office of Undergraduate Research Support, URS or ERS for short, and they have a lot of resources there about that. And also, before you come to Duke, if you are like ready to get going with research, you can check out the Duke list, and that has a ton of opportunities to do work study research assistantships with professors. Professors will just list the opportunities they have to do research with them.
James, just to add on to your question, I haven't participated in undergrad research yet, but this semester I'm taking a class with a guy named Mark Stencil. He's the managing director of NPR, and he's teaching a class on the 2016 election. He flies, Duke pays for him to fly in from DC once a week to teach our class, which is pretty cool. And he does a lot of research with political fact-checking, politicians, making up stuff all the time or bending the truth. And so he's started a lot of fact-checking foundations. PolitiFact it was actually started by a Duke professor, Bill Adair, who I'm going to take a class from next semester. And they have a collab here, so it's very much a humanities-based research. But again, I took these genetics classes when I first came in, and for the people who were actually wound up being seriously interested, they all wound up in labs. They all found something cool that was really specific to their interests.
All right, thank you. From George, what do you think is necessary in a successful college life at Duke, financially and academically? I guess I'm not quite sure what you might mean by financially, but I can speak on budgeting. I mean, you come to college, and I don't know how everyone else does it, but I mean, this was kind of the first time I was dealing with having a budget, and so definitely you need to be on top of things because no longer your parents will be keeping track of everything for you. I think the biggest thing for success academically and financially is just really understanding that how well you do at Duke is, I mean, you have so many resources at your disposal. And you just have to really take advantage of those. Even financially, if you are confused about how to pay for things or pay for your tuition, we have an entire financial an office that can help you, and they will talk to you and explain things to you. Do you guys want to talk about meals?
Yeah, I love to talk about meals. I'm all about food and you talking about dining plan? Sure. Freshman year, you are very much restricted to the freshman dining plan. And some people think that's bad. I think, having lived through it, it's a really good plan. It's kind of complicated, so if you don't completely follow, don't worry. You can look it up online. We have this place called Marketplace, which is in the middle of East Campus, close to all of the dorms, 2-minute, 3-minute walk tops. And they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. They have a bunch of different options, a bunch of kinds of food, pizza, burgers, vegan options, gluten-free options, more than just pizza and burgers, stir-fry, sushi. There's a bunch. And they also have a main place that rotates every night. You get 2 swipes a day to eat breakfast and dinner there. And then you also have some food points to eat at one of I think it's 29 different places all over the rest of Duke. So you still get to eat in a variety of places and can go all around and do that. But at the same time, you have to eat at Marketplace a lot because otherwise you're going to run out of points pretty quickly. And some people find that restrictive, but I actually think it's fantastic because A, Marketplace food is great and I miss it dearly. But B, you sit with your class every single day. If you're going to Marketplace every day, you can count that the rest of your grade's going to be there. You don't have to make dinner plans because you can walk in and find 3 different friend groups chilling at different tables. It sounded weird saying chilling like that. And you can just eat with whoever. It's such a casual environment, and I love Marketplace and the freshman meal plan.
Let me just touch on work study real quickly because that's one of the main ways that students can keep financially stable while they're in college. So there are a ton of work study jobs out there. You just have to submit your FAFSA paperwork properly, and it's very easy to get these jobs. So a lot of times it'll just be a matter of working behind the desk at the library, or you could even help a professor with research. You could work in the Bryan Center, in the ticket office. There are tons of these jobs out there, and it's very, very easy for students to get them. And it really does add up when you consider it's 5 to 10 hours a week. It's a typical load that can go a long way towards making everything more affordable. And in fact, I went on a school-sponsored, a Duke-sponsored trip recently, and if you had difficulty paying the small fee, it was subsidized, but there was a fee. The professor offered basically a work study to cover the cost of the trip. So everyone at Duke is very mindful of this and is going to be trying hard to make sure that your experience is not hindered by the cost of college.
Okay. Now we have a quick question from Alicia. I hear a lot about going to talk to your professors in college, but I'm quite shy and I wanted to know, is it intimidating at all, or are the professors and TAs very approachable and open? Personally, from my experience, I am also pretty shy when it comes to talking to professors. I just rather like wave from a distance. But they're pretty, everyone that I've ever had is incredibly approachable on campus, and they're great. And a way that I found is really fantastic is like flunching, where like having lunch with the professor, because you get to know them on a more personal level. If that's still pretty like intense for you, like one-on-one, I love bringing friends along, especially ones that are very talkative, because then you don't have to talk much. You guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm on a first name basis with several of my professors, including, again, this guy, I call him Mark. He is like a former Washington Post like executive. He's like super, he has so much influence and is such an important person, and I just have so much respect for him. But like, he treats me so casually. He gave me a book randomly the other day in class because he thought I'd like it. A lot of my professors have gone above and beyond to just really connect with me and with other students, because they're people too, and like they respect us as students and want to know more about us just as much as we want to know about them.
Great, thank you. So Melissa says, did any of you participate in DukeEngage, and what is that like, and how do you get involved with that? So I participated in DukeEngage. I didn't do an international program. I did the program in New York that's focused on gender and women's issues. So it's pretty fantastic. I loved my experience. It was 8 weeks in New York City, completely paid for by Duke. So, I mean, that's really fantastic. It's for any student that comes to Duke. You can apply. Sometimes you don't get it your first time just because the demand is very high. So just reapply, and then you usually get it once you're like junior becoming senior or sophomore being a junior. And the entire process is really fantastic because it's all service learning and you're really engaging in your environment. What I did was I was working at this organization that was focused on girls, specifically like young girls in high school, and so I was creating like curriculum and then like going to the high school and meeting the students and like teaching workshops on like empowerment and what sexual assault means and what consent means and what feminism means. And you basically just get involved by kind of attending information sessions and then just really applying and kind of talking to anybody that's participated and getting like advice about which ones you should do.
Yeah, I can add on to that. I haven't done DukeEngage yet, but I am doing it this summer. I'm going to Dublin, and the program's kind of centered around refugees. Like Haisa said, yes, a lot of people don't get the DukeEngage that they really want the first time they applied. I applied my freshman year, didn't get it. I applied again, and that was actually better because I have several friends that went on the trip, and I got to hear a lot about it from them and got to meet the professor and know her better. And we haven't gone on the trip yet, but I can already tell it's going to be fantastic just from what I've heard. They go on weekend trips with you, so while I'll be in Dublin during the week doing my partnership, on the weekends we'll go to Galway and to the coast and get to see a lot of other parts of Ireland, which will be awesome. And at the same time, I'm really excited to work with the professors because they've had us over to their house already for brunch and for dinner several times. I'm going back again on this Sunday just so that we really, as a group, because there's 8 of us going, get to know each other well before we're actually in another country.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Rashan about how much time do you spend each day completing work for classes? Matthew, do you want to grab that one?
Yeah, sure, I'll jump in. I would say it depends. I'd say like between 2 and 4 hours, and that leaves plenty of time left in the day because like keep in mind that the actual amount of class time is about half of what you have in high school. And you have like sometimes like the middle of the day you can carve out and have lunch with a friend, coffee with another friend, and then you have like 2 or 3 hours in the library right there. So it really is a matter of time management, and I think it's pretty manageable.
Yeah, just to add on to that super quickly, this is my first semester I've had class on Friday. Just let that sink in. And it's only 50 minutes. I love college. Okay, continue.
Question from Ashton. How is the career class advising at Duke? In high school, no one really helps students choose which classes to take or what career path to pursue. So how does the mentoring and advising at Duke prepare students for their futures as compared to high school? I can completely relate to that. It's pretty hard. Personally, I found the advising at Duke to be fantastic. When I was pre-med, I still receive all the emails for pre-med, so that's why I'm mentioning this. But there's like a pre-health and like kind of like any type of business or like pre-career you want to do, and they have a huge like area of like people that are advisees that can like help you. But on top of that, when you come into Duke, you get an academic advisor. Mine is fantastic. I love her. Her name is Nikki Smith. She's so great, and so we just like talk about everything, and I've just been able to kind of figure out all of my classes just kind of talking to her about what my thoughts are, and then her being able to connect me to resources or other people if she doesn't know.
Yeah, I'll jump in on this too. So go ahead and Google advising at Duke, and you should go to advising.duke.edu, and their site is fantastic, very easy to navigate, and I would recommend checking out the directors of academic engagement for different areas. So they have them for the sciences, they have them for the humanities, and they also have global advisors. So those are people who, it's not just about study abroad, but it's about how does your education fit together and what can you do about sort of like your Duke education in the world. So I'll speak to humanities advising in particular. There's the humanities advisor for Duke, Dr. OJ is what we call her, Jules Odendahl James. She is fantastic. She will send you an email in October saying something like, welcome y'all, so glad to be your humanities advisor, email me, set up an appointment. And I was the second person ever who responded to her email, and I think so she was like very glad to see me and to work with me. And she ended up connecting me to the undergraduate research that I've been doing on genocide. She has been really instrumental in kind of, I guess, think about these advisors as, this is like my poli-sci side coming out, as like linkage institutions, right? They're the people who link you to all the other people, because the university is this massive place, and a place like Duke, they have towers and silos, and it's very easy for information to be trapped in all of those things. And what an advisor does is that she can break down all those silos and connect you to the opportunities that will help you grow the most. So definitely check out those. Check out Global Advising. And also, if you're interested in study abroad, separate from Global Advising, you have the Office of Global Education, and they have their own advising process based on region. So you can talk to someone for Europe or for Asia, Latin America, etc.
Thank you, Matthew. A question from George says, for students who did not attend a focus program, did you ever regret that decision? Did you guys do focus? Yeah, you did? Yeah. Okay, I didn't. I never regretted it, just because I really came into Duke. I was pre-med, but that was kind of like, that was the easy thing to say you were, and like it was just kind of a default for me at that point. And I ended up taking 8, like my freshman year. So focus takes up your entire first semester, right? Which is your 4 classes of your total 8 for your first year. And so because I didn't do it, I got to take 8 completely different courses from completely different areas. So I took like a poli-sci, I took an arts of the moving image, I took a public policy, I took a women's studies class. I just took so many different things. And it was through that freshman year of like exploring that I was able to really figure out what I wanted to do as far as major. And if you're really undecided, freshman year is really the only time you can afford to be that kind of reckless with taking classes.
Just to maybe add on for those of you who don't necessarily know what Focus is, I did Focus again. It's called Genomes in Our Lives, and what Focus is it takes 2 of your first 4 classes in your first semester. And so I had one class that was like genome biology, very science heavy, and then another class that was related about genetic policy. And so these, they're not the same classes, but they obviously complement each other. And they were interesting, and I learned a lot. But, ultimately I wound up not focusing on biology. But I'm still really glad I took Focus, because when you take a Focus, you live in a dorm with the other, I think, 35 people who do your Focus. And, again, you share 2 of the same classes, so you get really, really close to those people because you live with them, you take classes with them, and then you have a weekly dinner with them and also the professors from that Focus program. So while I wound up not actually doing genetics, I'm really glad to have met the people that I did through that program. All of my friends are like pre-med people, and I'm like public policy, but that's okay because I still like them. They're cool people.
Yeah, and I also did a Focus, and I would just say, like, weigh the costs and benefits of having that extra flexibility versus that like immersive learning experience, and figure out what you sort of want in your education, and also consider that Focus classes do not count towards your major. So they're just sort of like fun classes out there that you take freshman year, but they don't count. So for better or for worse. And then, instead of focusing on Focus here any longer, William has a question about distribution requirements at Duke. So you may have looked at all the like course codes on the Duke website. Like you can find all of this stuff, and his question has to do. William's question has to do about whether they're flexible and allow you to expand your horizons, or if they're more of an annoyance than anything else, and then how easy it is to double major. So that's a lot in there. So let's unpack it one thing at a time. You've got the modes of inquiry and the areas of knowledge, and you have to. Jackson, do you want to jump in there? Talk about those real quick.
Yeah, sure. There's a bunch. There's a lot, and it's kind of not overwhelming, but just pretty complex at first. But it's well designed. It's to get you to stretch your comfort zone. I'm really glad it exists, because without it, I don't know if I'd have taken the classes that I've taken. You have to take, like, for example, ALPs, which are like arts, literature, and performance classes. You have to take 2 of those. So this class, I took a class called Moving Image Production, and now I'm going to get that certificate in Arts of the Moving Image. So it's kind of launched this whole side of me, this awakened these passions, I guess, if you want to say, that I didn't know I had before. And so I'm glad that they're there, but they're also not that hard to knock off. Focus alone got rid of so many of my different requirements, because Focus itself is so interdisciplinary. And I just feel like I've been exposed to so much, and now that I've had that breadth, as I am a sophomore about to be a junior, I can really focus on the depth of like getting in and focusing on my major, and like locking down on the classes that I really want to focus on.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Oh, sorry. One of the questions was about how easy is it to double major, and I would say it is absurdly easy to double major. It is so easy to double major, in fact, that I, in my critical Duke column, Duke Chronicle voice, wrote an article called "Credentialitis" about why people should consider having only one major instead of going for the double major, or the double major and certificate thing that's really popular with a bunch of people. So I would just say, take time to explore. Use those those course codes as an excuse to take really awesome, fun classes. Like I took this conservation biology class that was a natural sciences course my freshman fall, and that was with this renowned conservationist. He is this sort of like old, bespectacled British man who loves like biodiversity, and had I not had that requirement, I don't know if I would have gone out on a limb and taken that class, but it was one of the best classes I've taken here, and I think my education would be poorer without that exploration.
Just to add to the double major question, I'm gonna hit you up with this statistic. 83% of Duke students pursue an either additional major, minor, or certificate.
Thank you, Duke Admissions website.
That statistic is like, it's what I wrote about for my Why Duke essay. Again, like, yeah, I kind of wanted to do the genetics thing, but really I had no concrete idea of what I wanted to do, so having that academic flexibility is kind of like a safeguard coming in, made me feel so much more comfortable. And if you can tell, like, below my name, I'm getting a major in 2 certificates, so it's awesome. I'm able to focus on so many different cool things.
Okay, now we're going to transition to student life and what Duke is like beyond academics. From David, we have a question. Can you guys touch on Duke social life? How did you guys first make friends? How big is Greek life? Wow, these are a lot of questions. Okay. What are sporting events like? How is tenting? So let's do like the first one, and then I'll add them on as we go, because it's a lot to cover. Also, we have a ton of questions, so we're really sorry if we can't get to everything. There will be another chat another day. I don't remember what day, though. So you guys can ask them again. So how did you guys first make friends?
I'll jump in here. There's this great thing called O Week, Orientation Week, and believe it or not, you do actually make friends. So some people describe them as their O Week friends if they're the sort of people that they like walk around and wave to and smile at, but don't actually talk to. But I actually made a ton of friends over O Week, and I'm still in touch with them. So just like go to the events during Orientation Week, and then also I would just say like join organizations, join clubs. I'm in an a cappella group, and some of my best friends I've made through like singing together and making music together. So lots of different ways to make friends. Don't be afraid of that.
And if you can't wait to O Week to get started, you can do what I did. I made almost all of my current best friends from P Wild, which stands for Project Wild. Project Wild is a pre-orientation program, and there's several of them. There's P Waves, P Arts, P Build. I chose Wild, and what it is it's 2 weeks hiking in the woods. You're with randomly assigned groups. It's you, 7 other freshmen, and 4 upperclassmen, like leaders. And so you get to know some upperclassmen, hear about Duke, but also like really bond with the 7 in your crew, and then also like the 100, 120 in P Wild as a whole, because there's times when you're all together. It's been by far and large the best decision I've made revolving Duke, because not only did we do this trip together, but there's another spring break trip that we've done together, and then I've staffed P Wild. I continue to staff P Wild, and there's like weekly things to do, and just all my friends at first were from P Wild, and then as other semesters get on, maybe you guys want to get talking about Greek or SLG life.
Sure.
But do P Wild or P Waves. This is the best piece of advice you're ever going to get before you get here. Like, pay attention. Do a pre-orientation program. I highly recommend it. If you don't like hiking, like P Waves is all about kayaking and chilling on the beach. P Arts is like a new arts-themed one. P Build is service-related. P Search is research-related. There's so many cool ones. Just do one of them. Do Wild. I'll be there. It'll be awesome. All right, you guys can talk. All right.
How big is Greek life? Greek life, I guess it really, I feel like I've said this a lot, it kind of really depends on what you want it to be. I'm not in Greek life, I am in an SLG. So to me, Greek life isn't very big
translation,
at all.
Duke speak.
Oh,
SLG
that's right.
is a selective living group.
Yes, so it's kind of like a co-ed group that just like focuses in on like a specific theme. Like Ubuntu is like social civic activism and whatnot. And then like each group has like a different focus. To me, Greek life doesn't seem very big, mostly because like I just don't involve myself that much in it. But it can be as big as you really want it to be, because I have a lot of girlfriends that are in sororities and I love it so much. And then there was another question.
Can I just add to that a little bit, Haisa?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I have kind of like a unique situation. I didn't join a frat or an SLG my first year. I decided to go independent, which, great, no regrets. And then I wound up actually living with a fraternity. I had a bunch of friends in it, and actually the reason I didn't join a fraternity is because you're supposed to get back early for second semester, and I just didn't know, and I just showed up and like had missed rush, whatever. But the fraternity let me live with them, go to like their parties without me having to like pay or anything, which was nice. And that was great. I met a bunch of friends that I live with them, and it's awesome. Like you can do IM with them, and like again, nightlife is great. But now I'm joining an SLG. It's how he says is civic oriented. Mine is it's the sports and chill SLG. I don't know. We all play frisbee. It's fun. So anyway, I've kind of been exposed to all three. All three are great options. Again, just do whatever you're most comfortable with. You'll be all right either way.
Okay. Now we have a question from Samuel. Does the campus feel diverse and accepting of minority students? I can answer that, but if you guys want to jump in first. No? Okay. So I feel like Duke is really, really diverse. I mean, that also could be attributed to where I've come from. I came from a very small town in Florida. So to me, Duke is incredibly, incredibly diverse. So mainly, like, from my SLG, I've been able to engage with some of the most different people I've ever met. We just have, like, so many different religious beliefs, political beliefs, opinions about sexuality and life and like just everything. And I found that Duke is a really great space and really safe to be able to talk about those types of things. And I mean, like I participated in the LSRW, which is Latino Student Recruitment Weekend. And so it's specifically focused on bringing in and welcoming students from the Latino community. And so I am Latina. I am Brazilian. So when I went, it was really, really fantastic because it was, and there's also a student weekend, is that what it's called? I'm not sure, but there is one for that's supported by the Black Students Alliance.
I think it's BSAI, I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so they're really both are really fantastic weekends, and I've only heard really good things from people that went to it. And it's just kind of their way of like connecting you to students that are already here that can like talk to you more about their like experiences being like minorities at the school.
Yeah, and I'll just add in a little bit about the social justice scene here at Duke. So there are a number of multicultural student organizations, and a lot of them will put on events, host panels, and everyone is welcome at those events. I went to the Black Student Alliance held an awesome event called A Real Talk with this guy who's been on the front lines of the Black Lives Matter movement. His name is Durham McKesson. He's like Twitter famous and wears this blue vest and is like really well known. And so I'd say that Duke has those sorts of spaces, and they're very accepting. And Duke is a university like any other, and it has its issues. And I will say that what's great about Duke is that there is a strong culture of freedom of speech, and that these student groups will often put on protests, and it's sort of encourage people to join in solidarity. So last year there were a few events, and I marched in a few protests, and that's all part of what it means to be a student here and what it means to be part of a diverse community like Duke.
Okay. Anything else? Or are we good? Okay. A question from Alyssa says, okay, I'm sorry. What is Durham like to live in? Is the campus animated enough that you don't really need much of a big city around? In general, how is social life organized in Duke, whether it is more centered on the city or on the campus?
The whole, I don't know, would you say Durham suburban? I don't know. The whole kind of makeup of Durham is part of why I came to Duke. I didn't want to go to a big city. For college, I lived in big cities my whole life, and I feel like everything you need is either at Duke or right around Duke. Freshman year, you're super lucky because you live in East Campus, which is right next to 9th Street. Tons of great places to eat, and it's like pretty vibrant. And there's also another place called Brightleaf Square, has a couple of like bars, I guess you can call them, that you can get into if you're 18, and so there's a lot of social life that's centered around that too. So freshman year, it's extra convenient. You know, at an older age, it's still pretty easy to go over there. But the restaurant scene of Durham, maybe Hayesi, you want to talk about that? I know you like some food.
Yeah, I really do. I actually am part of a March Madness right now. That's my friends that are seniors. They created specifically about food and restaurants in the Durham area only. So that's like how intense food is here. So Durham is like one of the foodiest cities in the country, and at first I didn't really see that.
The foodiest city in the country.
Is it really?
Number one, yeah.
So exciting. It makes me want to go out and eat now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really, really good. And I didn't realize that the first year that much because I kind of stayed around campus. And so like we have a lot of great things around campus, but if you have like a car, or if you even just like grab an Uber every once in a while, it's really fun to explore. And there's so much of Durham to see.
Let me just add one thing real quick. So Durham, actually the whole Triangle area has this awesome thing called Restaurant Week. And they give out fixed price menus, and it's very affordable to go out and try new restaurants. So that's something that I did with a few friends with like a little extra spending money I had from my campus job, and it's something that just makes it a lot more fun to just get off campus every once in a while and have some great food with great people. So Google Triangle Restaurant Week, check it out, definitely do it.
Yeah, and also, like, just back to transportation, if you don't want to take an Uber and Duke Transportation provides you with what's called a Go Pass. Ooh, I have one on me right now. You're going to get a real live look at a Go Pass before you even arrive at college. Isn't that cool? So this thing gets me on the Robertson Express. Oh, look, Matthew has one too. I don't feel special anymore. The Go Pass allows you to use, like, Triangle Transit, Durham transportation for free. It also lets you get on the Robertson Express, which runs between Durham and Chapel Hill every 30 minutes, so it's great for getting to UNC. Believe it or not, we actually like some people at UNC, despite the sports rivalry. Few and far between, but like, you know, there's some cool people there. They have some reason to go there. Maybe Matthew, you want to talk about that a little more?
They're okay. They're okay. Oh, so wait. Some other things that I do off campus. There are a lot of like just fun things to do around with the farmers market, which is fantastic. They have amazing jams. And then
there's
also
this place.
like,
go
ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say there's this place called Defy Gravity where Hayesi
yes.
has a party.
So great, best birthday party ever.
It's a trampoline like warehouse. They decked out this warehouse with trampolines, and they have dodgeball, and so fun. Definitely do Defy Gravity.
They
Also,
have like a ninja course.
Okay, yeah. We have an escape room in Durham. I know some of y'all already have done escape rooms with each other because the Duke class of 2020 is just cool like that, and you're meeting up. But when you get to the Bull City, that's Durham, you can go to Bull City Escape, and that's a ton of fun.
So we have another weekend question. What do people usually do on weekends? Is it usual for friends from other colleges to come and visit, or is everyone pretty occupied with clubs, homework, new on-campus friends?
I have both visited other schools and had my friends come and stay with me in terms of the visiting friends question. It's super easy, you know, just bring them along with me, integrate them into my social life when they come up to visit. Other times when I can, I play club frisbee, and club sports allow you to travel. Like, it's kind of like a high school sports level of commitment. We practice 3 or 4 times a week, and then lots of weekend tournaments we travel. So for example, a couple weeks ago we went to Stanford in California actually on a very subsidized trip from Duke, and got to compete there and tour San Francisco and just do a bunch of fun stuff there. This weekend I'm going to South Carolina, maybe not as exciting, but it'll be much more frisbee-centric, and we have like our big tournaments coming up. So a lot of my life is concerned with that. But in basketball season, that's where my weekends really, really become awesome, because so much of my time can be spent hanging out in K-ville, tenting for games, or like just playing games on the quad, like frisbee. I like frisbee if you can't tell. Spike ball, other things. Lots of just lounging on quads during the day, and parties or basketball or both at night, in my experience.
Hold on, let me find it. Okay. I know I haven't had any friends come from colleges, mostly because my friends are all the way in like Colorado, so it's pretty far. But I have a lot of friends that have had their friends from other colleges come and visit, and it's like totally manageable, and actually is a really great way to kind of like combine home and like college all in one. Usually what happens is when your new friends meet your old friends, everyone just like gets together and you all go out and have fun and eat amazing food. So yeah, it's definitely possible, and it's not like taboo or anything. Um, and then we have one more question. What's it like coming from a relatively lower class family to Duke? How common is it to miss out on social opportunity, friends, because of the wealth gap? Does anyone want to touch on this?
Sure, I'll jump in on this. So Duke has a really, really good orientation program for first-generation college students. It's the 1G program, and I am not a first-generation college student, but I have several friends who are and who said that that program was really instrumental in helping to set them up for a really good experience at Duke and to connect them to resources on campus that that will help them. So another thing to think about is it really depends on who your friends are, and I will just say, like, if your friends are the sorts of people that won't hang out with you because you can't afford to go to a ritzy dinner in Durham, then they probably aren't very good friends. And to give an example from my a cappella group, there was one time where we were going to go out to this one restaurant, and then one guy in our group said, "Hey, I'm a work-study student, and I don't have a lot of money to go around. Can we go somewhere else, or can we order in?" And then this other guy, an international student from Thailand, said, "You know what? I'll just go grocery shopping and cook for all of you." And we had this like really nice personal time, like hanging out in this guy's central campus apartment instead of going out for a $30 a person meal. And it ended up being like so much a better experience and such a more friendly, like, bonding experience than it would have been had we been so like focused on going out. So I would say make good friends and be open with them about that.
I think that is a good segue into, there's another question here from Harrison about Duke students having to live on campus for the first 3 years and wanting to know what kind of options there are for housing afterwards, after your freshman year. Good question. Like Matt just said, he lived here. He went to a central campus apartment to make food. There's a bunch of options. You can live either on West Campus or on Central Campus. I will live on Central Campus next year. I lived on West Campus this year. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. On West, you're like closer to your classes and to the gym and stuff, but it's largely still dorm-style living, whereas on Central, you get your own room a lot of the times, and you have a kitchenette and just a lot of sort of the cool uniqueness that comes with having an apartment, but you're still very much on campus and close to everything else. Haisa, I don't know if you want to talk about the advantages of having an apartment since you live on Central.
Sure. As soon as I like got to Duke after like my first semester, I was like, I'm ready for an apartment because I love cooking, and you don't have a lot. You definitely do not have as much opportunities to cook when you're like in dorm life, mostly because it's just so easy to go to like restaurants, and when you live on West, your food points, like the smallest food point plan you can get is already like I think 600, 700 food points more than the food point plan you can get on Central. So I got the smallest one I could with Central, and because of that, I like cook all the time, and so that's like a huge advantage. Also, you have your own bathroom, which is incredibly blessing, and having your own. I also have my own bedroom, so for someone that kind of like likes your own space, sometimes it's a really great aspect. But it is also a lot of responsibility because no one's cleaning the bathroom for you, no one's cleaning the kitchen. So yeah, it's kind of like a give and take, like Jackson said. And do we have another question? What percentage of Duke students are international?
I don't know the exact number for that. I want to say it's somewhere between 10 and 15%. I have kind of, again, a sort of weird situation. I graduated high school from Peru. I'm technically an American citizen. I was born in Kansas, but like I've never really lived in the U.S. So I was kind of like, I mean, I was very excited to come to the States for college, but I can't say I have the experience of being like the culture shock because like I visited grandparents every summer. But I will say like a bunch of my friends, like my friend Katha who went to high school with me, she is Peruvian. She's had an easy transition, no struggle at all. Like some of my best friends are from Peru, from Israel, from Canada, which I guess that I don't know if that really counts, from Argentina and from Spain. Like they've all integrated so well here. And my friend from Abu Dhabi, like he just absolutely loves it here. I I think that the international community really does a good job more so of like integrating all over campus. I feel like maybe sometimes people who are from the US should do a better job of reaching out and trying to spread their wings into new social cultures and groups because the international kids are really enthusiastic about like immersing themselves into the Duke environment as much as they can.
Okay, so our next question has to do with kind of North Carolina politics, what's going on. So the question is, are you aware of how North Carolina's HB2 will affect life for trans persons on campus? So that's a terrific question, and whoever asked it, thank you so much for asking it because this has definitely been in the news. So background, what is House Bill 2? So in this past week, the North Carolina legislature, in its infinite wisdom, reconvened to outside of session because it's only in session for some of the year. They put together a $42,000 special session for the purpose of passing a discriminatory bathroom law that would require trans persons to use the restroom of their birth gender. And so Duke has been consistent and strongly opposed to this bill and really just deplores this sort of discrimination. So there was actually Duke, if you look on the Duke University Instagram, you can read Duke's official statement. I'll just read it here. Duke University values every individual. We are committed to equality, diversity, and inclusion, which makes us a better and stronger community. For that reason, we deplore any effort to deny any person the protection of the law because of sexual orientation or gender identity. So that's Duke's stance. Rest assured, coming to Duke, you will be welcome. We are an inclusive community, and we're not going to let what the North Carolina legislature is doing affect what goes on campus. So don't be afraid of this. And also, from sort of my constitutional law side, I'll say that this will definitely be challenged in court a lot, and I'm sure that justice will prevail.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. I think we're going to take one or two more questions, but before we do that, I just want to make a quick plug for something so Haisa, Matthew, and I all do various things with the Duke Student social media account, so follow us on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, etc. But also, today, every Monday we release a new playlist on Spotify, and these playlists are all sort of Duke themed in one way or another. So there's one in particular that I want to share with you right now. If you go on Spotify and look up Duke Students, you'll find this. And we have different playlists from different sort of things. We have like an Overheard and Cameron Indoor, a bunch of songs that are played during basketball games. We have a lot of Matthew's favorite a cappella songs and some Spring Break. But then this one that we just released today is the hashtag 2020 Happy Dance. So this is a collaborative playlist. And what we want you guys to do is to find this account on Spotify, and you can all contribute one or two songs to that playlist, preferably around the theme of when you found out you got accepted in the Duke, like how happy were you, and what song do you think best describes that emotion? So yeah, that'll be it for my plug. Again, feel free to follow us on the different accounts to get and sort of inside view of Duke life.
Yeah, and just to add on to that about Spotify, you actually have to follow the account. I know this is like the gimmicky part of all of this. You have to follow the account to add to the playlist. So go ahead and do that, and then what you can do is like right-click a song wherever you find it on Spotify and add it to that playlist from that menu.
Awesome. So we have a question from Roberto. Now that you've been at Duke for some time, can you say that the Duke experience is what you expected it to be when you applied as a senior in high school? For me, when I applied to Duke, I was not at all paying attention to, like, for example, the religious life, the sports life, which sounds kind of insane when I'm, like, going to Duke. But I was really much more focused on, like, dance and arts and on really the academics aspect. So no, it wasn't what I expected it to be, because this community is so much more incredibly, like, united than I ever thought it would be, and I think a large part of it has to do with the sports and, like, every other aspect of Duke that's also come together. But to me, the biggest thing that stood out was sports, mainly because I didn't focus on it at all. But yeah, it's just like tenting, for example, is probably one of the most unifying things you could ever do here. I haven't tented, but almost all my friends have, and they have adored the experience. Do you guys want to talk about, like, if it was
Yes.
what you thought it would be?
Sorry, wait. What was your question?
So it was, now that you've been at Duke for some time, can you say that the Duke experience is what you expected it to be when you applied as a senior in high school?
Okay, yes. So, before my junior year in high school, I did not know what Duke was. I didn't really live in the U.S., didn't really pay attention. I knew Duke was a basketball team. I've loved college basketball my entire life, but I didn't really, like, acknowledge schools, so on and so forth. But then, like, senior year rolls around, and I realized Duke's, a great school, and I could also have this whole basketball element to it. So I came here and I tented, and yeah, for those of you who don't know, tenting is spending either 6 or 10 weeks, depending on the year, in a tent with 11 other people to go to the Duke UNC basketball team. And it is the most unifying, unique Duke thing there
You could
is.
say it's intense.
Yes, it is very intense in so many ways, and it's just, I was so excited to tent, and it was everything I thought it would be and more. My freshman year, we beat UNC in overtime, and there's just this feeling of euphoria that I've almost never felt other than that moment. There are some moments at Duke that have just been the highest highs, and so in that way, yes, Duke has been everything I could have possibly imagined, but it's also surprised me in ways I could have never foreseen, and just opened my eyes to, like, so many things I just never imagined were legit. I don't know, Matthew, if you want to say any more.
Okay, sure. So I think the biggest thing, and this is especially true of Duke, but I'm sure it'll be true of wherever y'all go. Definitely come to Duke. So, the question is, how is it different than what you expected it to be? And I think I expected it to be like a great school, and just just sort of like that would be it. But Duke is really becoming home for me. Like, when I come back from break, from winter break, from spring break, Duke feels like home. It's like coming down. I have a car, so, like, driving down Chapel Drive and seeing Duke Chapel there at the end, like, it pulls your heartstrings a little bit. It feels like coming home, and I think that's probably the biggest surprise for me, is the way that Duke feels like being home.
Yeah, I'd have to completely agree. It definitely feels like home, and I never thought it would. And so we're going to finish with James's question. I'm still undecided as to where I plan to attend. Why did you decide to attend Duke as opposed to other universities to which you may have been accepted? You guys can start if you'd like.
There's a lot. Ultimately, when it came down to it, I mean, every school has its pros and its cons, but just after meeting the people that I'd gotten to meet before coming to Duke, everyone here, it doesn't really matter what everyone does. So many different things, and there's like people who are really, really amazing at like a really discrete or uncommon thing. So like in my grade, there's an Olympic kayaker from Hungary, for example, and he's one of like the best kayakers ever. That's just really weird, and but awesome and cool, and not like what I had ever been exposed to in high school. And everyone here has a very amazing passion that they're just so into. Whether it's the basketball team being amazing at basketball, or Matthew, who's going to be the next president, or not the next president, he's a little young, but he's going to be president, and everyone is just very good at what they choose to love. It's this intense passion and excellence for very specific things, combined with the fact that a bunch of students come in with no previous passion, but like develop one when they're here, or just become a jack of all trades in so many ways. And it's sort of just that diversified passion that really drew me, along with the basketball and I don't know, the weather's great, the food's great. There's so many reasons. There's no way I can answer this question in a minute. Sorry, your turn.
Okay, I'll go ahead and add to that. So I'll speak to the choosing Duke over other schools. And first, a note on rankings. So, Duke, like, we're very proud to be like a great basketball school and to have a highly ranked, program by U.S. News and World Report. But ultimately, those rankings, they're really immaterial, and you have to consider the character of the school, how it feels, how it fits. And a lot of that is just gut. Like, go there, see what it's like, and trust your instincts. And so that's what happened with me and with Duke. So I was accepted to some other schools. I was into Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, UVA, and William & Mary. And I ended up choosing Duke because Duke was the place that felt right. And I'll point out a few programs in particular. So Duke has the American Grand Strategy program. Go ahead and Google that. If any of y'all are foreign policy nerds like me, that is like, it's nirvana. It's awesome. And that program brings in guest speakers. We're having the current White House Chief of Staff and the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, so the sort of like right hand to the president, and then the former highest ranking military commander in the US. They're coming to Duke next week. That sort of thing happens all the time here. So I would just say, like, definitely the guest speakers are a plus. That program drew me. If any of y'all are into conservation, into the environment, the Nicholas School of the Environment is really top-notch. There are very few schools that have a School of the Environment of that caliber, and with all of the sort of accompanying accoutrements that come with that, like all the trips you get to go on, all the faculty, all the research you get to participate in. Acapella scene here is great. I feel like so welcome and so at home in Duke Rhythm and Blue, which is my acapella group. Check us out on Spotify. I'll put that plug in there real quick. And I also had heard the Duke Chorale sing in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia, before I came to Duke, and so I knew that Duke was a place that had a really outstanding music program where I could take voice lessons or pick up an instrument. Like, you can learn djembe. Like, there's so much you can do here. So I think, like, one of the best things about Duke is that, sure, it's a place where you start to specialize a little bit, but you don't have to if you don't want to. The horizons are open to you. And one other thing I'll add to sort of like Duke's feel and how it's positioning itself is that Duke is a global university. There are students from Bangkok to Beijing to Beirut who are all aspiring to come to Duke. And that 10 to 15% of Duke students who are international students, they add so much to this campus. And I would encourage you to get to know them, also to pursue study abroad opportunities, because Duke is a place that is intimately connected with the rest of the world.
Great, Matthew. I think you kind of perfectly summed it up.
Good luck following that.
Right? I think you just said literally everything I could possibly think of. The only thing I could really add, I guess, is that I personally really loved how when I stepped onto Duke's campus, I mean, just like walking around with my little sister, we got lost multiple times. And multiple people came up to us without me like having to ask them, and they're like, "Are you lost?" and like helped us. And that's kind of like that feeling of like feeling supported has really continued throughout until like now. And I just don't feel like it's very. I mean, even though we do incredibly well academically, the environment is not hyper competitive, and that's something I did not want.
Yes, yes,
Um,
very much agree.
yeah, and I just feel like the students really like it's more like we're all dying, we're all having like a really hard time with this class, so let's all help each other. I mean, for example, my first semester here, we had this huge midterm, and it was just 50 pages of questions that the professor gave us ahead of time, and someone was like, let's make a Google document and put all our answers into one thing so we can all get a good grade. And we had the highest like average that professor had ever had on that like test. So I just really feel like that's kind of like how Duke has always been for me.
Yeah, I would say that just on the competitiveness, everyone wants everyone else to succeed just as much as they want themselves to succeed, and that again is just another reason of why I chose Duke.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Please visit us for Blue Devil Days. We all love to see the tour groups and talk to you all. If you have any questions, feel free to run up to any of the three of us if you see us. You'll make us feel kind of popular. Follow Duke students on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Tumblr, and Spotify. Honestly, they're all like you can pick and choose which one you like. They're great ways to kind of see more into like student life if you're still a little uncertain. And the next chat will be this Sunday, actually, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for coming.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
y'all. Bye.